Pause for a moment before you let these words settle in, because what you're about to receive isn't ordinary information that arrived by accident. This message has traveled through long stretches of quiet and emotional distance, through pain that was carefully hidden and never spoken aloud, before finally reaching you at this exact instant. What it reveals matters more now than it ever could have before. There is someone in your life who has kept a part of themselves locked away inside for much longer than they would ever willingly confess to anyone, including themselves. This has been going on far longer than you ever imagined or suspected. They didn't simply wake up one day and find that their emotions had grown distant or cold. Their behavior on the outside didn't reflect what was truly happening beneath the surface. Instead, something much quieter and slower took place, something that unfolded gradually rather than suddenly. They buried their real feelings deeply because they didn't know what else to do with them at the time. They carefully covered everything up, making certain no one could see what was truly there. They convinced themselves that keeping silent would be simpler, easier, and less painful than speaking honestly. But emotions that get suppressed don't simply vanish or dissolve into nothing. They remain in the shadows, growing heavier with every passing day, week, and month. They wait quietly in the darkness, and then eventually all that accumulated weight rises to the surface all at once. And that is exactly where this message is coming from right now. It doesn't arrive from a place of courage or confidence. It comes from fear and sudden panic, from the painful moment when someone realizes they may have allowed too much time to slip away without taking action. Silence doesn't disappear. It just waits until you're ready to listen. Something inside them shifted noticeably and recently. Perhaps they came across something that brought your presence back to them powerfully. Perhaps they heard your name spoken unexpectedly. Or perhaps life finally grew quiet enough that the truth became louder than all the distractions they used to drown it out. Whatever triggered it, that experience shook them out of the safe hiding place they had occupied for so long. One clear thought arrived with undeniable force: they might actually lose you forever. This thought didn't come gently or softly. It didn't appear during a busy afternoon when it could be easily dismissed. It came late at night when everything felt heavy and still. It emerged during moments when their phone felt silent and hollow. When the noise of daily life faded away, the quiet began asking questions they could no longer avoid. They had no more ways to sidestep what was becoming increasingly obvious. Nobody else offers what you carry in your heart. Nobody else listens in that same patient way you always listened. Nobody else understood them without requiring lengthy explanations every single time. Nobody else provided comfort without making them feel trapped or controlled. The moment that truth became unavoidable, the urgency inside them began to build rapidly. But here is something important to note. This urgency is not fueled entirely by love alone. It is also driven by deep fear of losing something irreplaceable. They know that once something truly precious is gone, it cannot be recovered or replaced with anything similar. Fear knows what love won't admit until it's too late. If they could speak to you right now without pride getting in the way, without excuses creating distance, they would admit they should have done much more, much sooner than they actually did. They believed they had more time than they actually possessed. They thought your care and patience would simply remain unchanged, no matter how long their silence stretched on. They didn't fully understand that silence carries real power to hurt someone deeply over time. Now they are beginning to see clearly that choosing to do nothing is still a choice with real consequences. That choice has cost them the closeness that once existed between you. They carry guilt for not being present when their presence was exactly what the moment needed. They carry guilt for staying silent when honest words were what mattered most. They carry guilt for lacking the courage to be open when vulnerability was the only thing that could have made a difference. Back then, creating distance felt safer and more manageable. Silence seemed easier than direct confrontation. Avoiding the truth felt like a form of control they could maintain. But avoiding difficult things never protects anyone from the pain they cause. It only delays the damage, allowing it to gather greater force for later. This person doesn't struggle because they feel too little. They struggle because they feel far more than they know how to manage or contain. Opening up honestly would have meant accepting real risk and uncertainty. It meant they could potentially be turned away or rejected. It meant they might lose their emotional footing completely. It meant facing parts of themselves they weren't yet prepared to examine closely. Someone once observed that until you bring what's hidden in the darkness into the light, It will continue running your life from the shadows. You'll simply call it fate or bad luck. That is exactly what occurred here. Instead of following what their heart truly wanted, they allowed fear to make every significant decision. They allowed pride to do most of the speaking. Instead of expressing real emotions, they let silence speak even louder than pride could. Now those old decisions have matured into consequences they can no longer overlook. There is another, deeper layer to all of this that weighs even more heavily on their mind and heart. They can sense that you are no longer the same person you were before. Something in your energy has shifted. The way you respond now carries a different quality. Even your silence feels different from before. You may still hold some feelings for them, but you are no longer chasing answers or clarity. You are no longer repeating yourself, hoping something will finally change. You are no longer standing in that painful, uncertain place where nothing felt clear and everything hurt deeply. That change unsettles them in ways they never expected. The reason it unsettles them so much is that they relied on your patience far more than was truly fair. They relied on your gentleness while carefully guarding their own heart. Somewhere beneath everything, they simply assumed you would always be there. They never really considered that you would reach a point where you finally put yourself first. But you did reach that point, and now they can feel the difference. Your quiet internal shift speaks louder to them now than any heated argument ever could have. Keep listening closely, because this is where the truth becomes even sharper and clearer. What they fear losing isn't just you as a person. They fear losing the unique feeling of being truly seen without harsh judgment. They fear losing the emotional safety they never fully admitted depending on. They fear losing that rare space where they felt understood without being pushed past their limits too quickly. Only now are they beginning to understand that not every bond can be rebuilt once it has been broken. Not every connection can simply be found again in someone new. That understanding follows them everywhere now. It surfaces during quiet moments, when they have nothing left to keep it buried. It rises when they try to move forward, but find no solid ground beneath them. It returns every time they compare someone else to you, and immediately feel the difference. This is why the urgency continues growing stronger and pressing harder each day. It has nothing to do with trying to control you or the situation. It is about realizing that time is no longer something they have in abundance. They can feel a door beginning to move toward closing, not with loud drama or anger, but quietly and gradually in the background. That kind of soft closing is the most serious kind, because when a door closes gently within someone's heart, it rarely opens easily again. They want to reach out toward you now. They want to find a way to explain themselves properly. They want to offer an apology that actually carries real meaning, not just defensive words. But fear keeps stopping every attempt before it can begin. The question keeps whispering whether it's already too late. The doubt whispers that maybe you no longer care. The fear whispers that if they finally reveal their real self, they might face rejection that hurts too much. So they hesitate and hold back their words. They compose messages mentally and then erase them before sending. They rehearse conversations inside their head that never actually happen in reality. They imagine every possible outcome and still remain stuck exactly where they were. While they continue delaying, the pressure inside them continues building without release. This is not a promise that everything will reach a happy resolution. It is not a comfortable story or any kind of guarantee for the future. It is something closer to an honest confession offered from a distance. They are not claiming that all the harm has been fully repaired. They are not pretending they have suddenly found every answer they were missing. What they are finally acknowledging, even if only within their own private thoughts, is that treating you as though you would always be there waiting was truly wrong. They didn't understand your real value until they felt the emptiness in the space where you used to be. When truth arrives this late, it carries extra pain because it arrives together with the loss of something that mattered very much. But what this means for you matters more than what it means for them. Listen carefully to this part. This is not encouraging you to wait patiently. It is not asking you to offer forgiveness before you feel ready. It is not pushing you back into the same pain you already lived through. It is only making visible the truth they failed to show through their earlier actions. You matter to them far more than they ever found a way to express openly. Your absence in their life feels louder now than your presence ever seemed when you were fully there. What existed between you was real even though it was handled poorly by them. The real power in this situation belongs completely to whatever choice you decide to make. Genuine power does not rush forward simply because someone else has been caught by panic. Strong desperation does not always indicate true readiness for change. A person can feel desperate emotions and still not be in a place where they can love someone with the steady care that is truly needed. Right now, this person is sitting with the honest results of who they chose to be when it really counted. Results have a way of being brutally honest. They strip away the comfortable stories we tell ourselves. They remove the excuses we lean on too heavily. They reveal without sentiment exactly what silence ended up costing everyone involved. They are going back through old moments now that they once thought were too small to matter. They examine those moments through the clear lens of loss instead of the comfort of old pride. They remember the small, steady things you did naturally. They remember how you checked on them without needing any special reason. They remember how you could read their mood before a single word was spoken. They remember how you held yourself together even when they pulled away. They remember how you always moved toward understanding rather than blame. These memories press on them now because they reveal something genuinely painful to face. You met them at a depth they had not yet reached inside themselves. They pulled away from real emotional growth and the responsibility that comes with a meaningful bond. For a long time they lived as if distance was a safe shelter. But now that same distance feels more like uncomfortable exposure than protection. They feel seen by you even through the current silence between you. Your silence has changed in quality and depth. Where it once felt like a brief pause, it now feels like real and growing distance. Where it once seemed temporary, it now feels like something that could continue without any clear end. That difference presses against them in a way they cannot easily ignore. They can sense that you are no longer building your emotional world around their confusion. You are no longer waiting for them to catch up to where you already stand. This stirs an even deeper fear inside them. Not only the fear that you might say no, but also the fear that they may no longer hold the same important place in your life. They worry that you may have quietly closed the chapter without drama or final confrontation. That kind of calm from someone who used to be consistently available feels frightening to a person who depended on that availability without earning it properly. They are also reaching another important understanding now. You never asked them to be completely flawless. You only asked them to show up when it mattered. You never required constant intensity from them. You wanted steady consistency. You were not asking them to completely reshape their core self. You were asking them to live according to the person they claimed to be. Now they see with uncomfortable clarity how many times they reached for comfort when courage was needed. They told themselves over and over they were not ready yet. They created endless reasons for the silence and justifications for the distance. They made explanations for why the present moment was never quite right. But readiness is not something that appears on its own when life becomes convenient. It is a decision that must be made actively. When you were offering love and honesty and full presence, they chose not to meet you there. That realization hurts them now, because the opportunity no longer feels the same. They can feel the change in you clearly. It shows in your tone of voice and the pace of your responses. It appears in the fact that you no longer work hard to justify your own worth. It lives in the quiet confidence that has settled where all the reaching used to happen. That shift changes the entire landscape of the situation. They believed they had unlimited time because you were gentle with them always. They confused your patience with permanent availability. They saw your care as a promise of endless waiting on their schedule. They forgot that patience has natural limits and that self-respect eventually rises up. Now they are caught inside a difficult internal struggle. They want to reach toward you, but don't want to start something they might not sustain. They want to offer a real apology, but fear making promises they are not sure they can keep consistently. They want the closeness back, but worry about the steady effort needed to hold it properly. So they remain suspended between wanting and avoiding, between the pull toward you and the old habit of staying away. That is why their energy feels mixed and uneven and restless. They are half pointing in one direction while their actions still show something different. They imagine being brave enough to take the step forward. They imagine finding exactly the right words. They imagine showing up as a better version of themselves. But imagining remains easy. Living demands something real and lasting. It requires actual change shown through repeated actions over time. This is exactly where fear tightens its hold most strongly, because deep down they understand that words alone will no longer be enough. You are no longer waiting to be moved by what someone simply says. You are watching for what is real and sustained through consistent behavior. This doesn't mean your care has completely disappeared. It means you grew stronger quietly and steadily. You sat with your sadness without running away from it. You faced the disappointment with honesty. You let the truth become clear instead of turning away. They are only beginning that same process now, and the timing matters. A great deal growing through loss feels very different from growing, while love stays safely within reach. They understand this even if they cannot say it fully out loud. They know that even if they speak now, what once existed cannot simply return to its old form. That knowledge frightens them because what they miss most is the version of you that trusted without holding back. Trust does not reset easily just because someone finds the right words. Once it changes, it alters the entire shape of the bond. So they stand at a doorway. Behind them is the familiar comfort of hiding everything. In front is the risk of real honesty without protection. If they stay where they are, they lose you without remedy. If they step forward, they must face themselves without their usual excuses. That is something they have avoided for a very long time. What you have been sensing is not confusion without reason. It is a real shift happening at a deep level. Beneath all of this, a quiet truth has been growing steadily. Loss does not always arrive with loud noise. Sometimes it comes as a soft whisper. Sometimes it shows as emotional withdrawal. Sometimes it is a subtle change in someone's presence that cannot be argued with. They feel that whisper now when they think about calling you. They feel it when they picture you moving forward with peace and clarity instead of bitterness. That image unsettles them because they have no way to stop or redirect it. They cannot charm their way past it or stay busy enough to silence it forever. For the first time, they are confronting what their fear has truly taken from them. For a long time, they fought against their own feelings for you. They fought the responsibility of being fully present. They pushed against openness and softness. Now, all that resistance has become pressure inside with nowhere to escape. They are not only afraid of losing you, they are afraid of what losing you reveals about who they have been all along. At a deeper level, they understand this was never just about poor timing. It was fear of being fully seen, fear of falling short in love, fear of not knowing how to hold something real without damaging it. They keep returning to moments when they could have spoken, but stayed quiet. Those moments felt minor then, but feel heavy now. You did not suddenly disappear from the connection. You gradually adjusted to what they showed was available. You stopped doing all the emotional work alone. You stopped filling empty spaces with hope. You stopped hurting yourself to keep things alive. That happened slowly, without big announcements. They see it now clearly. They notice you no longer lean on them the same way. They notice their thoughts no longer control your mood or choices as much. What disturbs them most is your new calm. Calm can feel more final than anger. Calm shows you have accepted reality. Calm suggests you may no longer spend energy hoping for a different outcome. They are used to confusion and mixed signals but have no map for someone who has become clear and steady. You are no longer waiting to be chosen by someone else. You stand in your own worth now, and that changes everything. Their fear grows more layered. They worry that coming forward will show they are still not ready. They worry they cannot become the person you need. They worry you see them more honestly than they see themselves. Standing in truth is hard for someone used to hiding behind excuses. They want to tell you their feelings were real. They want to explain the silence and how overwhelmed they felt. But they are learning that arriving late does not undo the past. Good intentions do not erase what you experienced. An apology does not rebuild trust without real change. They know this, and that is why they pause. Growth is not comfortable. They are inside that discomfort now, the discomfort of missed chances. The discomfort of self-awareness. The discomfort of change arriving after the best moment has passed. That is the real urgency inside them. Not just to reach you, but to face themselves honestly. You were like a mirror for them, showing depth and courage. Rather than look into it, they turned away. Now, without you, they feel the loss of that reflection. They feel cut off from part of themselves. This forces questions they avoided for years. What you sense is not just that they want you back. It is that they are waking up to themselves, and that brings its own pain. Regret hurts, and seeing your strength makes it more real. They know they cannot return casually through an open door this time. You did not shatter when they pulled away. You did not beg or crumble. You found more of yourself and protected your peace. That has grown their respect for you, even as fear grows too. They understand they must return with full honesty and real change, if at all. The stakes feel too real now. The truth is too visible. That is why they feel unsteady. They do not want to come back as the old version of themselves, but they are not sure who they are without their protective walls. The deeper power sits with you completely. You do not need to rush because of their fear. You do not need to open the door just because they finally heard the sirens. The only thing asked of you is to stay honest with yourself. If this message arrived at the right moment, then somewhere inside you already know the real question was never only about whether they feel the loss. The real question is whether anything genuinely real and lasting will follow from it all in the end. Healing begins when you stop waiting and start choosing yourself.